Hello and welcome to Moving Forward. In the program tonight, you'll be hearing from me, Abdul. We got Dr. Dara Hamilton, and we have the very talented Miss Croix, Dynel Harris. And of course, we'll be talking about a number of issues. We really wanted to make sure we had someone like Miss Harris here, a young person, because we are really going to be relating very much to what's happening to young people in our community, what's happening to the children, what are their needs in a very general sense, how well do we understand those needs, and what we need to do to be able to pass on to them the sort of legacy that's going to be of help to them in the future. I want to begin with you, Dr. Hamilton, because different stages of the people's lives, they react in different ways. They have understanding in some cases they don't. So take me all through that from birth till you become a teenager.
Right. So, Mr. Ali, you are correct. At different ages and stages of our lives, we have different primary focuses, different needs, and different senses of independence. So, very young children, their priority tends to be the sense of safety and sense of security that they get from their parents. And this is from birth until about age 1. But of course, they need that sense of security throughout our lives. Everybody needs that. But that's a real priority in terms of children's development and their happiness and their health and their ability to actually grow and to develop cognitive skills, intellectual skills, do well academically. So that starts really early on. And then children tend to become more focused on their peers, more focused on play, more focused on doing well in school. And as they continue to grow, that focus becomes turned into their sense of identity. For example, for adolescents, they're really working on this idea of who am I? And it becomes focused on their peer relationships. They need that approval from their peers. And then it becomes focused on intimate relationships, developing those types of relationships. And in fact, our development goes throughout the lifespan. So when we become adults, we become interested in working, right? Generativity versus stagnation. I think that's the stage that I am in, where you pretty much work. Yeah. And then eventually we become focused on reflecting on our lives. What has our life been like? So it really goes across the lifespan, this idea of development and focus. And for children, it does start off with the need for a sense of safety and security, and moving into the needs for autonomy, the needs for productivity, and the needs for friendships, the needs for identity development, separating themselves from their parents, and so forth.
So it's a process, really, when you start to think of it. Well, Dynel, we're so glad to have you here tonight, Miss Croix. First of all, let me just ask you, what is it feeling like to be Miss Croix? Did you expect this to happen? And what are your thoughts at this time?
I'm filled with joy. I'll start there. It's kind of like a shocker, even though this is something that I've always wanted to do. It's a dream come true, honestly. 10 years in the making. I started my pageantry journey at 13 in the Arthur A. Richards Junior High School. So for me, this is just, I'm living the dream right now, honestly. There's so many opportunities and so many doors that have been opening ever since the title, and I'm beyond grateful for it.
Well, that's really very nice, and we hope that you continue to grow with the title and do all the things that you want to do. Well, we've just heard from Dr. Hamilton, and we wanted to make sure that we had a younger person here. So we're not just talking about youth, but we actually have a youth to interact with and to find out. What did you think about some of the things that she mentioned, this growth that is taking place in the minds of children? They start off as infants, and then they grow all up to be teenagers, and like you, a young person.
I agree with the sense of security. What I will say is that we tend to prioritize things that are, I guess you would say, easily accessible to us as far as younger children go. So for me personally, growing up, I was a member of the Rising Star GC Orchestra. So from about 10, 11 to about like 15, my only priority was getting to practice. As I got older and I was in Synchro Educational Complex, I became a student through C-Tech. Then my priorities became practice and my studies at CTech and then getting to my school to work through CTech. So then as you progress through your teenage years, I do see where the priorities tend to change. They start to expand and they start to become a little bit more serious as you grow into an adult. Right now, for me, my priorities is being Miss St. Croix, of course, having a job and making sure that all my everything, honestly, is in order for when I do return back to Texas after my reign is over to continue my studies at Texas Southern.
Okay, well, that's really very good, and we hope that the time will come when you can do that. There's been often, I think, some misunderstanding between adults and young people in terms of their needs, because often adults might say, well, this is the way to do it, and sometimes the needs of younger people are ignored. Expand a little bit on that. Is that something that is happening quite a bit? How big a problem would you say that is?
I would say that happens in every young person's life where an adult is like, don't do it this way. Do it this way because I know this is how it's done. And if you do it this way, I know for sure it's going to work. I'm the type of person, I live by work smarter, not harder. So I always tend to take the route less taken in any situation, honestly, to find a quicker solution that would be most effective across the board, whether it be an issue with myself or an issue with others, or not even an issue, maybe a project, because I am a marketing major and I do marketing here in St. Croix. So even if it's a project, yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, are you one that's kind of outside the run of what everybody else does, would you say?
I wouldn't say so. I would say I'm a team player.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do like when it's effective across the board. And yeah, pretty much. Definitely a team player, and I just push for overall effectiveness.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you see this?
I really appreciate her description of this dynamic that can occur between adults and children, which is, this is the way I want you to do it, and this is the way the child wants to do it. They have another idea that's coming out of their own interests and their own development, and the fact that they're growing up in a different age. And so parents are oftentimes placed in this position where they have to restrain their children, yet allow their children room enough to grow. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes this push and pull where parents are like, I need to hold you back and put some boundaries around you, and children are like, I need to go out and explore the world and do these new things and find new ways of living and explore and create. And so it does create that dynamic that our Miss St. Croix described, where the parents are saying, do this way because we've always done that, and the child is saying, but wait a minute, I have another experience that I want to apply to this situation.
And we are living in a more modern time, more technological era. So I do see more of where it's individuals or younger individuals are taking a different route, especially in terms of being financially stable. Instead of the typical 9 to 5, a lot of these younger individuals are pursuing entrepreneurship, as well as trades that don't require them to have a college degree. However, they are certified in whatever they do. So I do see different ways of getting things done, and I think, not to be biased, but I do believe that the methods that we're using now, I see it being more efficient, more effective, and I just see us progressing slightly faster than what our parents did or how they progressed.
How do you see that? Did you say moving
Well,
faster?
definitely. I mean, it's appropriate for the times. So remember, the youth are going to be living in a time that we won't be living in. Mm-hmm. And so they must develop, they must adapt to be able to live in those future times, not in the past times, because we can't go back that way. So that's how I would characterize that phenomenon of them wanting to do things that are different. The times are evolving, the times are changing, and they are learning to do that as well. They're learning to keep up with the evolving times, and that's really important, because that's where they're going to be living. So I accept that, and it's appropriate. It's necessary for them to do that, and so, it's also necessary for us as adults to help ground them, right, as they grow.
So, but how do we bridge the gap? Because there's a new development here, technology, all sorts of things that we weren't involved with before, and we're in a different world with the young people. How do we bridge
I'd say, just off the top, that we would have to do at least a couple of things. One is to manage our own anxiety about the change that we're expecting, right? So part of it is I'm anxious. You're doing something new. I'm used to this process that I can rely on, and so it feels much more comfortable than trying something that I don't know what the outcome is going to look like, or it's going to be different from what I'm used to getting. And then there's the idea of being open to hearing from our youth, opening to hear those ideas, and being encouraging of this creativity and the exploration of new things. So I'd say to be open to at least hearing it. We don't have to shut down ideas that we're not comfortable with. We can at the very least hear them. So I think that's one of the ways of bridging that gap and not disconnecting us from the youth. They will be taking over.
Well,
we have to trust that they are preparing themselves to do that, and that we're preparing them to do that.
You heard that? You will be taking over.
Yeah, most definitely. I just feel like we need more opportunities, and like she said, we need to be heard. A lot of older individuals don't tend to listen to us, or they do and they don't hear us for what we're really trying to say. I have peers, I have classmates, and we all just want an opportunity. We all just want a chance, and some may get it quicker than others. I have had opportunities that my classmates would never dream of. And so I just feel like we need someone or a group, or we just need the effort, and we need to see the openings for those opportunities. I feel like the older individuals should just give us a chance, because we do have new, fresh ideas.
But giving a chance mean that giving up ideas, giving up feelings, giving
Not
up what they
necessarily
believe
giving
in?
up, but willing to compromise.
Compromise, yes. Okay.
Willing to accept change, or at least try it out to see what we have to offer. Because we have a lot of ideas. We're fresh out of college. A lot of us either just finished or have our undergraduate, or they're doing their master's. We have fresh ideas. We're in the world now. We're outside. We're in society. We're all over social media, and we're seeing so many things that we want to try, but we can't because we don't have the opportunity to even say, hey, like, look at me, look what I could do.
Should government be involved in this to the extent that they're saying, well, we're listening to this, we're feeling as though this is adequate, something that should be done. We need to put more effort, we need to put more resources available for these people who will be taking over down the road.
I think it is possible to set up programs, educational programs or other programs that allow young people to innovate. And so I think that's one way that government can be responsive to what we're talking about today. This can be done in school systems. This can also be done on the job. So that would also mean us taking the position as people who are already established, that we are again open to having younger people come in, and that we're not going to be threatened by them coming in and giving new ideas or having more advanced information that we might have based on the fact that we have studied and we've learned processes as they were, but we're not necessarily in a position to learn those new processes or innovate in the same way that younger minds can be. I will throw this in that our population tends to get smarter. Each generation gets smarter. So I accept that my child is smarter than I am in many ways. Our intelligence actually generationally increases. So it's very true that young people have new ideas and new ways of thinking that we don't have, and that they really are more prepared to do things in the future than we.
Well, based on what you're saying, why is it we're not encouraging the young people to say, well, teach me? You know, I'm ready to listen to you. You're in the technological age. You got all of these skills and talents and so forth, which I don't have because I'm not in that age. And I want to listen to you, and I want to hear from you. And I want to do the things that you think are proper and right in order for us to...
Mr. Ali, we can be threatened by change. That can create lots of anxiety for us. We can also be threatened with our own the idea that we may become obsolete, that I'm not useful anymore, I'm not important anymore, I'm neglected, you know, and so that can be another threat, whether it's conscious or unconscious. It can cause that to happen. So we may be threatened by our jobs. They might take my job, so our sense of security as well. And then the other thing is that we are used to, and we've talked a little bit about this in this program, to kind of looking at young people in a certain way, which is they really don't know too much, and we're the ones who know everything. And so now that we have this young person coming in who may know a little bit more than we know about something, it's hard to make that adjustment sometimes to them being the one who's in charge.
Yes.
So I think that those factors can
And sometimes
influence that.
those in charge, they take advantage too. They don't really say, well, okay, I'm willing to work with you. It's like they're saying, well, you don't matter anymore. I got everything. I'm young and I know all that's going on. It's my world. And
Oh,
you
is that what
believe
some young
well,
people
some
do?
young
Oh my
people.
goodness, wow.
Well, because you see, I
Man.
think in some cases it's kind of
Do young
natural
people? I would
in
let's
their
ask
mind.
our Mr.
Yeah.
Do young people feel that way? You guys
Some young
don't know what
people.
you're talking about.
You shut
Some
up.
young people.
I wouldn't say that, but it all goes back to us being fresh out of school,
Excited.
We learned things in a different method than you guys did. We did things differently. College is different now. The books are different. The information is different. It's newer. It's more modern, and so it's not that we know more than you. It's just that we learned things a different way, and we learned it in a way that adapts to today's society. And so if we were given that opportunity to show you, well, okay, this is how today's society is, and I feel like things would operate better if we did it this way instead of operating as though we're still in like the 1990s. I think that we should be given that opportunity, that chance to just showcase what we have and let you guys be the judge.
Well, I think that's interesting and certainly something to think about. But I'm also saying that the youngsters themselves, like you, can actually say, look, I'm willing to work with you. We're in different areas in terms of our development, but I'm going to work with you, Mom. I'm going to work with you, Dad.
We are willing. It's honestly those that are in the positions that are not willing to help us and to hear us out. Because we're there. We're at the job fairs. We're at the job interviews. We're showing up. We're showing interest, and it goes nowhere.
Absolutely. Well, it goes nowhere. That sounds interesting. You accept it goes nowhere?
Well, I'm sure in some cases it does go nowhere, and I think that what we really need to have is this mutual give and take, because we both have to be grounded and allow that space to grow. And I can liken that to what happens with trees. If we move a tree around, it's not going to be able to become strong and grow. So you need that grounding, that foundation, which is what we may provide in our generations. And then you need the opportunity to reach for the sky, which is what the new people, the young people are doing. The young people are doing. They are full of energy and excitement and newness, and they're coming in and saying, we want to do this, and then we're the ones who are grounding them to reality while they do that. And so both of those processes are important. And in some cases, sure, there are people who are so threatened by it that they are willing to hold people back or dismiss them. I can say that as young as I am definitely starting to feel less relevant than I felt when I was maybe your age, right? Like, oh, so much energy and excitement, and this is the direction we want to go. So I recognize that I'm turning things over to my interns and people who are younger in my field. And so to the extent to which we can recognize those feelings of threat in us, we may or may not be able to turn it over easier.
But that's an interesting point there, been in terms of feeling relevant to what's going on.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? Because you still have your experience, that's not disappearing.
True.
And you still have knowledge of doing things certain ways and so forth. So I think it's accepting that it's a different world, things are moving in a different direction, but nonetheless, there's still a role for
parents. Yes, and the role
in-
for me then is to help guide people who are coming up, to provide those opportunities for them and to support them in that and know that it's going to be them and feel very proud of seeing them do that. So that is a role that we can take.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I think that's
Or
really
a position
important.
we can take that can help things move a little bit more smoothly.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things I think we will have to try to see if we can arrange is something like a Children's International Day. The whole concept is that we have International Men's Day at the moment. We have days where the focus is on women in our community. And I think that would be a good idea if we came up with one that recognized the importance of children and where they fit into the society.
I think here the best way that we can do that in the Virgin Islands specifically would be through like youth tournaments. Our youth are very athletic, And if they have that chance to go out and show this athleticism,
Yeah.
I feel like they'll feel relevant, they'll feel seen, they'll feel heard, and they'll feel satisfied. As a young musician going out and you're playing, you spent all this time practicing, learning all this music, and you go out and there's nobody there. And it makes you feel as though, well, why am I doing this? Because nobody cares. So if we have these things and we go out into the community and we show support, the kids will feel relevant, they'll feel seen, and it'll keep them on that track to becoming prominent Virgin Islanders. And that's what we need.
Yes,
We need
right.
more prominent Virgin Islanders, more people that we can look up to in modern time.
Right.
We have some athletes, we do have some individuals that are putting the Virgin Islands on the map. However, we can have more. Why can't we have more?
Absolutely. Well, I think the whole idea of the day, once we get it together, will be to just focus and showcase the skills and talents. We can have a sporting activity, could be on that day. We can have lectures. We can have youngsters showing the artwork and things that they have done. So that's what we think. But it will be a day that will really be focused very much on the needs of the youngsters and to indicate to them, we value you. And we want to be very serious with our commitment to you. This is a day for you. We're going to come and see what you're doing, and we're going to just try to encourage you to begin setting a legacy for yourself early in life.
I just feel like, as I'm 23 years old,
Okay.
so I haven't been out of school that long, and I wasn't young, like a very young child that long ago either. And even then, when I was growing up, that's when I saw the beginning of the decline of the support of the community, or from the community, I should say.
Wow.
In the children's parade, as the years went by, I'm in this orchestra. I know to myself, my mom is faithfully going to be out there. But as we're coming down the stretch, year after year, we're seeing less and less parents. And it's not because these parents are in troops and, I'm going to drop my child and I have to go to my troop. They're just dropping them and they're going back home because they don't see the sense or the importance of going to the children's parade. Because, some of them have to prepare for the next day. And I mean, this is your child. You put this child in this program for a specific reason, and this child wants to show you and everybody else what they've been doing for all this time in this program. And so I feel like it starts with the parents as well, or it carries a heavy burden on the parents as well, because you have to show up for these kids. You can't just put these kids in these programs and it's just like, oh, well, my child, let's do this. Okay, but do you go? Do you support? Do you have pictures? Like, well, what? Let's see. And they don't, because they don't support them. So I feel like it starts with the parents as well.
The parents, well, obviously.
Yeah, and I think it also starts, agreed, and it starts with educating some parents who don't understand the importance of their role and their support in their children's lives. And just from a developmental standpoint, we started this whole program really talking about the needs of children across their lifespan and people across their lifespan, and that support is so essential. I can't even emphasize how much that essential is for brain development, for social development.
It is.
And it's just anxiety, like all of these things. It starts with the support of the parent, and I know that most people don't know that. From an academic standpoint, they don't know that. No one's told them that. So either you intuitively understand how important your role is in your child's life, or someone has to educate you about that. And just from my work, I have seen many parents across the years who I really believe aren't intentionally causing harm, but just don't understand. For example,
You said intentionally.
They're not intentionally. No. They're not intentionally causing harm.
But the harm
it's
is there.
happening based on a lack of understanding, a lack of resources, and a lack of time or energy, or their own trauma and so forth. And I think that some education of parents as to how to raise healthy children is important, and that they don't get it. I know. Of course, I got it because I went to school for those types of things. And so I did some things very deliberately with my child, intended to have specific outcomes for my child. That was very deliberate. And it was because I received that education. But most of us don't have a place. And depending on what our own parenting was like,
this is true.
Then we can be at a loss for that. So agreed that it starts with the parents. And I wonder if it also goes to the rest of us as a community in terms of developing interventions that can help educate parents in very small ways that make huge differences in the development of their children.
Yeah. Well, I would take that a bit further. I would say that even for our young people, and I'm speaking to young people like you now, to make a start, to try to help to bridge that gap, to remind parents that we matter too. Even though we're young people, we matter, and we have something to say. And the society that we have now as parents pass on, we're going to be the ones doing so. So it's got to be an investment from the parents' point of view, but also from the young person's point of view.
I think what I'll add to that, or what I'll say, is that with my generation, my classmates and my peers are starting their own families now.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do see is I see a lot of heavy support, because when we were growing up, it wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately for me, my mom was able to come to almost everything that I had. But the several times that she wasn't, I felt it. Even though I knew to myself that my mom told me on the day of, oh, good luck, or I'm proud of you, or whatever the case may be. But even though it's because she wasn't there physically, it still hurt. But I knew to myself that regardless of the situation, she still supports me. But some people don't have that at all. And I must say, I must commend my peers and my classmates, because they are showing up for their kids, and they're very proud and happy to be parents, even at such young ages.
Absolutely.
That's so nice to hear.
Well, it is. And of course, we have to continue to move forward to see what we're going to do. And I think if we do one thing, it's got to be to say we recognize the young people in our community. We really feel as though our responsibility is to help them to move forward. But it would be nice if the youngsters themselves felt the same way and say, yeah, I'm going to work with the parents, and I'm going to work with the youth leaders and the teachers,
Well,
and whoever.
we're trying.
Yeah.
We're trying.
Yeah.
We're definitely trying. Definitely trying.
You know, if it's just one-sided, it's not going to work. But the day when youngsters begin to say, well, don't worry about the thing, Mom, I'm going to make your breakfast. You know, I'm going to do you fix your shoes.
Well, we're getting to
shop
that
for
age
you.
soon.
Yeah.
I could speak for my classmates. We're getting to that age pretty soon. So it's coming.
Yeah. Well, that's good, because once that happens and that's working, it means that there is some continuity in it. We're going to be wrapping up just now.
Sure.
Anything you want to add to this?
I just feel very inspired by everything that you've shared here. I'm so excited to hear that your generation feels so on top of it, and that they are doing such a good job thoughtfully preparing to parent their children. And I think that gives me a lot of hope for what the next generation will look like.
Absolutely.
What I will say is we're not on top of it yet. We're definitely still figuring it out, but I do see the drive in us.
That's
Definitely, because of the lack thereof that was when we were their age.
Yeah.
And you will be encouraging other young
course,
people like
of
yourself
course.
to take over the world and do it in a reasonable
I do.
way.
I try
'Cause
to.
once you take over the world, remember now, you still have to have equality as a main thing. That there's nobody any more important than you are, but you're no more important than anybody else.
Amen.
So we have to look at it from that angle, because sometimes we get carried away that we are so important and nobody else matters. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Well, thank you very much for sharing, and we'll look forward to more discussions as we move forward and hopefully work on our Children's Day. And I just want to thank Mr. Earl Morris, Channel 27 here, and also Mr. George Matthew for being there to help us move forward with the idea of moving forward. It's the least we could do. All right?
Yes.
Thank you.